it's so sad to hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle hate Christmas. This would allow restoration of our forests. Like I said, our forests are overgrown. This would allow a fun way for families to participate in healthy forest management by thinning some of the living trees that are overgrown on our forest lands.
I guess when you don't have a strong enough argument that's relevant to the discussion, the only option Lauren Boebert has left is to baselessly attack her opponent's character.
I am offended that my colleague on the other side of the aisle would suggest that I hate Christmas. This bill has nothing to do with inhibiting people from celebrating their religious holidays, including through having a Christmas tree. This bill does not require regional foresters to do anything. I support the Forest Service using its existing authority to permit the harvesting of Christmas trees and trees for firewood, but that's not what this amendment actually does. I'd like to close by observing to my colleague that many of us make happy family memories with trees that are living. We have ways to enjoy trees without cutting them down or burning them.
It was tough to actually debate the usefulness of Representative Boebert's amendment to a bill that would prioritize profiting off of Christmas tree sales over landscape restoration that would reduce wildfire risk. And that tracks, though, considering her thoughts about the environment and climate change.
Now listen, Eagle County, I will go on the record with you all tonight and say that I absolutely believe in climate change. It happens 4 times every year.
Purposeful ignorance is fun until the reality of our refusal to acknowledge our effects on the climate get real.
From St. Pete Beach, where neighborhoods like this still bear the scars of the last hurricane to come through here, Helene. Now the area tonight bracing for what's about to come, Hurricane Milton. Now barely 30 hours away from making a historic landfall here along Florida's Gulf Coast. It could wind up being the strongest hurricane to hit the Tampa Bay area in a century. Officials warning it's an extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation. As expected, Milton's intensity has fluctuated, right now back to a Category 5.
We are watching this system intensify now. 165-mile-per-hour winds, Category 5, moving northeast at 9. The storm surge is a big deal, 10 to 15 feet south of Tampa, going towards Fort Myers and Sarasota, 5 to 8 feet as you get further south. But as the hurricane exit, it could see a storm surge on the eastern end of Florida. And we're also looking at a high risk of flooding anywhere from Ocala, Orlando, Sarasota. Heavy rain, 18 inches or more. That's going to cause catastrophic flooding. And Lester, also tornadoes possible from Daytona Beach, Sebring, all the way down to Key Largo.
It's crazy to collectively witness a consistent increase in these storms' power and size as predicted by professionals that study them, and still find ourselves being represented by folks who turn from jokes to childlike accusations, like when Boebert's frenemy Marjorie Taylor Greene claimed that Democrats not only control the weather, but sick it on Republicans.
Now the claims are getting even more bizarre. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous. It's so stupid. It's got to stop.
Notice how the deflection continues, no matter what results they see. The accusations turn political, which serves its purpose of no longer paying attention to the ones that have been wrong the whole time.
Since 2014, over 490 Good Neighbor Authority projects have been started in 34 states, and more than 273 million board feet of timber is sold yearly through this program. Currently, funds from the sale of timber from Good Neighbor projects can be used to treat insect and disease-infested trees, reduce hazardous fuels, improve forest health, and restore and repair decommissioned Forest Service roads necessary to implement restoration activities. This amendment would expand the permissible users of timber receipts derived from Good Neighbor Authority projects to include the reconstruction, repair, and restoration of roads on non-Forest Service land when such activities are needed to implement forest management projects on federal land. New road construction on federal lands would also be permitted use under this amendment to facilitate authorized restoration projects. However, These new road projects would still be required to comply with the applicable environmental review processes. Further, this amendment would allow timber receipts to be used to construct new roads to replace existing roads that adversely impact forest, rangeland, and watershed health. Access to areas urgently needing treatment remains a huge challenge to improving forest health. Roads are beneficial for forest management, provide the public with access to outdoor recreation opportunities, and enable safer and more effective wildland firefighting.
Seems like decent points for our amendment, which Representative Porter quickly disputed.
The Forest Service has a colossal network of roads that is already far too big for them to maintain. For this reason, it is hard to support an amendment that would allow the construction of even more roads, that doesn't provide any resources for the future maintenance of those new Forest Service roads. Our Forest Service is spread dangerously thin due to Republican budget cuts. This amendment would make the problem even worse. I urge a no vote.
In a normal debate based in facts and conclusions, it would make sense that this convincing argument would determine how many should have actually voted for this. But in current American politics, where Boebert's party controls the House, her amendment passed anyway. We legislate with a team mentality so much that the primary objectives have become to get wins for your side over obtaining wins for the country. And no one is more blatant about these aggressive politics than their leader.
And Gavin Newsom is going to sign those papers. And if he doesn't sign those papers, we won't give him money to put out all his fires. And if we don't give him the money to put out his fires, he's got problems. He's a lousy governor. And he treated me very nicely, and I treated him very nicely when I was president. But he's done a lousy job. We're going to take care of our farmers. We're going to take care of your water situation. And we'll force it down his throat. And we'll say, Gavin, if you don't do it, we're not giving you any of that fire money that we send you all the time for all the forest fires that you have.
They're so caught up in sticking it to a state that Trump hates, these folks don't even realize that they're cheering for death, destruction, and loss of property for people that agree with them, too. He's got them believing that Democrats make up 100% of California, and nothing is better than watching them suffer or die over a lack of fealty to his demands. It's all they care about when facts are simply ignored.
One of the new regimes, Fire Regime 5, applies to vegetation types that rarely burn, typically due to a lack of moisture or fuel. The fire return interval in those landscapes is more than 200 years. Because of the categorization of these fire regimes, hazardous fuels management is not as high of a priority and does not need a legislative categorical exclusion expansion. This follows the trend that my Republican colleagues have been setting. They have been legislatively expanding categorical exclusions, and Natural Resources Committee Democrats remain opposed. During our debate today, we have shown how meddling in the National Environmental Policy Act process is dangerous and how it sets a precedent that will do more harm than good. Categorical exclusions are most effective when they are developed with expert input by agencies and the Council on Environmental Quality, instead of mandated by Congress. This amendment simply continues to build on the slew of National Environmental Policy Act waivers that the Fix Our Forest Act advances. And it's no surprise that my Republican counterparts have chosen to make this amendment in order.